Hi, my name's Dunnicliff and this is Mark White. I'm the HR Shared Service Delivery Manager at United Utilities and Mark is the Sales Director at Transversal. Today we're going to be talking to you about how we've delivered 3 times better HR service by using our cognitive knowledge platform at United Utilities. I'm going to take you through the journey that UU's been on in terms of transforming its HR delivery service from a reactive team that was struggling to deliver on its SLAs to a proactive team who's achieving SLAs at 99% on a 2-day turnaround and achieving excellent feedback from its customers. So in this session today, we're going to talk around the challenges United Utilities were facing and hopefully get your input and understanding about challenges that you've had. We're going to look at the journey that we've been on, the solution that we've selected and implemented, getting a technical overview from Mark, and also looking at it from a practical point of view at UU. We're going to look at the successes that we've had at United Utilities and then some questions and answers if you've got any. So, a simple overview here, but we're going to look at before cognitive knowledge base and after. So before, it was a really stressful environment to work in. At the time, I was actually a business partner, and we often found that we were dragged into operational minutiae, and also the shared service team didn't have the tools to answer queries from the business. So it's a really stressful place to be. After deployment of the knowledge base, it's a much more Zen-like environment. It's much easier to implement changes, deal with queries, and there is an Ask HR platform, a cognitive knowledge platform, which is regularly used by employees. So just before we go into the full agenda, I wanted to give you a little bit of overview about United Utilities and set the context of who we are and what we do. We provide water to over 7 million customers and bill payers in the Northwest. So we support people from right the way from Crewe up to the borders of Scotland and Carlisle. So we're very diverse in terms of customer base. Our employees are also really diverse. So from tanker drivers that are moving sludge across the Northwest to professional chief engineers who support the delivery of engineering in United Utilities. So really diverse in terms of coverage. In terms of our HR team, it's a normal HR delivery model. Lots of you, I'm sure, can relate to it. We implemented the Ulrich model, a business partnering model, about 9 years ago. So we've got 5 business partners, the HR shared service team, the line manager is key, and then some centres of expertise like reward, communications, etc. In terms of the shared service team, they manage the whole life cycle of admin, resourcing, payroll, MI, and there's 25 of them, so very lean in terms of coverage. And one of the challenges we get from the business continuously is that they want a better service, which is more efficient, but for less money. So there's just an overview of how the organisation works. In terms of the improvement we've made in terms of productivity, consistency and responsiveness, we had a number of challenges as an organisation. I just wanted to take a bit of time for you to reflect and think, have you had similar challenges? So have any of you had issues with delivering on SLAs? Can any of you relate to having business partners and shared service teams that are pulled into minutiae of detail? And also, can any of you relate to not having consistent advice and guidance for your employees? I'm sure many of you can relate to that, and that's some of the challenges that we had. So if we hadn't dealt with that, we would have been facing negative feedback from our employees, a responsive team, and also lack of consistency in terms of delivery. So it was really important that we took on those challenges. Just a quick shot there of the Ask HR platform and some headlines of the improvements we've made over the last few years. So we've reduced contacts and calls into the team by 50%. 99% is a key number for me because it reflects customer satisfaction, but also the amount, the SLA delivery, the 2-day SLA. And then 100% reflects the fact that the tool can be implemented and managed by the full-time Ask HR coordinator that I've got in the team, and information can be pulled from the system but updated regularly. So just a few key headlines for you there. So on our journey, we knew we had challenges. On our journey, a key thing to do was to understand what our stakeholders wanted. So we asked our employees what they wanted from a self-service HR tool and what they wanted from HR. So they told us that the intranet system that we had, the HR system we had, was took too much time to find what they wanted. When they did search for things, it pulled up a huge amount of information, policies. It didn't give an answer on their question. And the final thing they told us was that there's a lack of consistency. If they contacted the team, they might get different responses, but equally, if when they searched, they'd find different versions of the same policy and response, and it just wasn't easy to use. Consequently, it was increasing the amount of people that were contacting the team directly. We also asked the HR team what they wanted. Obviously, they were some of our key stakeholders in implementing the tool. They told us that they wanted to capture the knowledge of our administrators and also reduce the amount of times people contacted them directly, so make the information available. They wanted an insight into what people were searching, the trends, what was missing, and any gaps, so we could be proactive rather than reactive. And the team also told us they wanted rapid knowledge creation without the involvement of IT, which is what the tool has brought us. So they were the key challenges from employees in HR. We also, as an organisation, regularly look at our customer service, and for our bill players, we benchmark ourselves against other service providers. So that's what we did in HR. We thought, what are other organisations doing to provide a good service to their customers? So some of the people we looked at were John Lewis, the BBC, Marks and Spencer's, Tesco, etc. And you can see what they do in terms of providing information to their customers. I'm sure many of you can also relate to the fact that our employees are much more demanding in terms of the information that they want. They want immediate information, they don't want to have to wait. And actually we wanted to be in a position that it was easier to self-serve rather than contact the team. So just a quote here from Gartner, reflecting on modern workers and the fact that they're accustomed to personalised experience of Amazon and the speed of Google, and they expect to access HR content in a similar manner. Meeting these expectations requires an intelligent and highly organised approach to knowledge management. So with all of those things in mind, we looked to see what we may do. Before we step into the solution and what we did, I'm just going to hand you over to Mark who's going to talk through the technology and science behind the cognitive knowledge platform.
Thank you, Kat. Mark White from Transversal. Yes, it's quite interesting to reflect back on that Gartner quote, really, about how consumers or employees now wish to have that same consumer-grade experience that they used to when they go externally and they're shopping on the sites of Marks and Spencer's, or they're using the BBC site to find out information and to watch programs. They're looking for that same quality of interaction. And yet, all too often when they go back into their organisation as employees, they don't find that same usability there. And the reason is, why not? That's what we're about as Transversal. We're about trying to give the employee the same level of consumer-grade customer experience as they would find as customers of another organisation. So within HR, we can all, I'm sure, relate to this moment where you've got an individual who's trying to find an answer to a straightforward question, and yet they're presented with a long policy document which they have to read. Maybe they don't understand it fully. They don't understand the jargon within that. And it might have been quite a task even to get the right document in the first place. And all of these challenges that you put in front of an employee means that as a consumer, they would just pick up the phone and call a contact centre. In this instance, of course, they give up and they pick up the phone and they contact the HR department instead. The other things that consumers expect today, of course, is to use any device. We've all got smartphones now, iPads, tablets, and we want to be able to use these devices internally within the organisation, just as we would do if we were external to the organisation. So all of this creativity in terms of how you put your solutions on these devices is really important if you want to get more traction for the solutions you put in place. So Transversal developed Prescience, which is a cognitive technology platform to help give employees the same degree of user experience as Prescience gives them when they go onto commercial websites. So the key areas of prescience are, firstly, it understands language concepts and the nuances of how people will phrase questions in different ways. We really need to free up the employee from having to know the jargon of HR and having to know the keywords to be able to find the right information. And this is what prescience does. The idea behind prescience is, with the minimal of keystrokes, it starts presenting you with answers to the question that you're typing even before you've finished. And that ease of usability is a key important factor in the customer engaging with prescience in order to find the response. The next part of prescience is that it will anticipate what you're likely to need next. So it already knows what you're looking at and then anticipates the typical follow-on questions that an employee would normally ask. And again, that's all with minimal effort on behalf of the employee, which again means that they're likely to follow through with their full query and build their knowledge around the topic. Crucially, the third part is the learn and improving element of prescience, because managing the knowledge is a very important aspect to a success of a solution such as this. What prescience will help the knowledge managers in the department to do is to identify the questions that employees are asking, but the cognitive engine hasn't been able to find a good match to that. So we've not been able to answer the query. And this gives the people in HR a nudge to put more content in and more knowledge into the solution so that those similar questions will get automatically answered next time. So that completes the package of capability that prescience brings to an application, such as a HR portal, where it can be embedded within to make the usability a lot more easy. So we've talked about the customer grade service here. Let me give you a view of what we mean by customer grade service. Taking you to a set of slide captures here of the BBC iPlayer site. And within that, you're able to ask questions. What you'll see is a Google type bar there inviting the customer to be able to ask any question that they like. So let's have a look at prescience in action. So here you can see a question being typed, can I watch? And as you're typing, prescience is looking at good cognitive matches and filtering this as you see on the fly. The full question we've typed in is, can I watch in France? And if we zoom in on some of the responses that prescience has brought to the screen, you can see that it's been able to understand the context of this question and understand that France is in fact abroad from the UK. And so therefore, when the customer is looking at this, they haven't had to understand the keywords. They can see that one of the responses here is, can I use the BBC iPlayer on holiday outside the UK, which is the one in this instance I would like to look at. And now that I'm engaged with prescience, not only is it giving me a clear, well-formed knowledge answer and giving me some alternative recommendations too, if I move on to that, it's showing me the other questions that I might want to look at, which are typically the type of follow-on questions that people would ask in this instance. So that's the way prescience is solving, if you like, my full query, and also giving me the opportunity to rate that. And that's quite an important part, because all of that rating capability will be submitted back into the HR team so they can see, or in this instance back into the BBC team, so they can see which content is actually cutting it and which content needs more work. The benefit of implementing this in such a way at the BBC has meant that they've reduced the number of calls to the BBC help desk by 65%, which is good for the BBC, it's good for us, the taxpayer, because any savings they can make will feed back to us. So this is the type of impact that you're going to make on a consumer-grade website by implementing prescience. I'll hand back to Kat now, who can talk about the impact it's made within HR.
Thank you. So, building on our view of our challenges and our journey, I'm just going to give you an overview of what Ask HR looks like at United Utilities. So you can see the overall platform. Here just on the screen we're seeing the top 5 things that people asked in December. So where are my latest pay scales, cut-off dates, what can I claim for Christmas, etc. Previously they would have been questions that would have generated queries into the team. You can see on the screen now we've got an overview of what the system looks like. You can browse all areas with the policies. There's a latest news functionality so we can keep up to date with what's going on. And people can also see what other people are asking right now. There's also the opportunity, as with the iPlayer, to ask a question. So in this example, we're keeping to the Christmas theme of seeing how we massively reduce the amount of questions coming to the team regarding claiming overtime for Christmas. So the person's claiming and looking for expenses. What can I claim for working over Christmas? They worked on Christmas Day. They were called out and they were on standby. So what the solution does, it brings up the answer to them, to their specific query. This has dramatically reduced the amount of calls we've had into the team, and it helps people know what they need to be inputting into our expenses system. You can also see that the solution is mobile. So 3,000 of our 5,500 employees have smartphones and they can access SKHR via the smartphone. But you can also, as with the iPlayer solution, you can rate the answer and how useful it was for you. And it also brings up related questions. So if you've got some other questions in relation to Christmas, they would come up and the system would anticipate other questions that you might have. So as an overview, Ask HR is accessible 24/7. It means it's effortless knowledge because it's anticipating people's queries and it's really easy to use. It's improving self-serve but also supporting first call resolution because the HR team also uses Ask HR as a key repository for data, and they will search it when people ask them questions. It's also insightful and it can be improved really quickly, as we've talked about. We have a full-time intranet Ask HR coordinator who supports the improvements of the system and makes sure we're keeping on top of any queries. So if anything happens in the team and we're getting a huge amount of calls around a certain topic, we would easily be able to update latest news, all the questions and answers, and reduce the calls. We also use it if we're doing any form of communication around pensions, pay review, etc. We always link back into Ask HR to make sure the information is on there. Okay, so just to go over the journey, we're going to talk around actually what we did when we implemented the project. Once we've got to design stage and identified Transversal as a provider, Transversal designed the portal and implemented every element of it. United Utilities were responsible for the seeding of the content and the Q&As, so we identified any question and answers we wanted to put on the system. In terms of buy-in, as we've already talked, we had workshops and feedback from some of our key stakeholders, but we also promoted the site and reinforced it at every opportunity. We monitored Ask HR to see what gaps there were and what improvements we could make, and completely updated the content regularly, and this was a key part of the adoption cycle. So all in all, this took about 12 weeks. I've already mentioned though, reviewing the content is critical to every day in terms of Ask HR, so it's a cycle we go through regularly. So in summary, going back to some of our key challenges and what we wanted to focus on, Ask HR has meant that there's been a reduction in calls into the team by 50%, and this has reduced everyday questions. We've had a 15% reduction in the shared service team overall. It's highly supported a 50% reduction in the business partners, and it's led to a huge increase in employee engagement and satisfaction in terms of the service we provide. In terms of consistency and responsiveness, it means there's one source of the truth, so all of the HR content and policies are in one place and are referred to on Ask HR. We also, as we talked around, it means that we can regularly and easily update the content and make sure that Ask HR is the one source. Finally, I just wanted to end with quite a strong message really in terms of customer satisfaction. As I've said, we've recently in Q3 had customer satisfaction of 99%, but you can see there on the responses with 100% of people thinking that the team provided a very professional service and 100% for the overall experience. And I'm just going to leave you there on the slide with a few comments from some of our customers in terms of their experience around Ask HR and what support it gives them. Thank you very much. By all means, if anyone's got any questions, hopefully understanding the journey we've been through has been helpful. But
any questions would be great. What resource commitment have you had to invest in that to maintain this process and the system?
I do have a lady that works 4 days a week, and I think it's really critical. So she works on processes, she works with the team to understand what's going well, what could be better, and she can do other things, but she's focused on, and that's been key to the success, I think. So she works 4 days a week, she focuses on Ask HR, but as it's one of our critical tools to our service delivery, I think it's worth the investment.
Hi there. Could you just say a little bit more about the setup and how much time and investment you had to make in making sure that the information that you were putting in to start up was accurate and correct and no duplication?
That's a really good point. When we initially set up, we used the ability to see what was missing and really reinforce it. So there was a period in the first 12 weeks where we got the information to a point where it was much more fulsome. So I think the investment period in making sure you got the right content was in the first 12 weeks. We continuously, because as you can imagine, it changes what we need to have on there, and actually people's demands and how often they use it, and the fact they're really dependent on Ask HR now. Employees will go and look at it. So, but the first 12 weeks, reviewing what was on there and monitoring it was key. And we did have some of the information to put in there, but it was a reinforced process. So you need upfront investment and you need a project team to support activity, but then commitment from the shared service team to almost buy into it and continue to review it. Does that answer your question?
There's time for one very quick question if anybody has one. Oh,
one really quick question.
Really quick one.
I can shout.
Yeah.
When you get calls to your help desk that don't come through this route, can you also track those in the product?
Yeah, we can. So we've also got a contact us form, which is at the bottom of Ask HR, and we've got a back end workflow, so that's all tracked. Pardon? Phone. It's quite manual, so that's something that I need to improve. So we don't as readily check calls. So that's something I need to improve.
Thank you, Cass and Mark.